A private island, a 5-star resort in the middle of the Caribbean Sea, a place advertised as an unblemished paradise. Paradises are peaceful, or so people say. But what if it was bought to conceal crimes? On June 19, 2025, at 5:02 a.m., FBI and ICE agents quietly approached the northern shore of Azure Meridian, a private island famous for its white sand beaches and million-dollar villas. The target was not a drug-smuggling ship, not a cartel warehouse, not a weapons cache. It was a luxury resort, with VIP guests, private helicopters, and a reputation for absolute safety. But beneath the polished dock planks and the twinkling lights along the beach, something had been rotting for a very long time. The investigation began 6 months earlier. A 23-year-old female tourist, a travel vlogger from California, vanished just 2 hours after posting her final video. A radiant smile, the resort's RFID bracelet flashing on her wrist. Her mother reported her missing at 6 a.m. the next day. By 8:14 a.m., the file was closed. Lost at sea. Voluntary departure. No investigation. No interviews. No camera checks. Just one internal update in the resort system. But what the FBI didn't know then, she wasn't the first. Over the next 4 months, 14 tourists disappeared within an 11 nautical mile radius of Azure Meridian. Different nationalities, different ages, different itineraries, but all shared one thing. Their files closed within 2 hours, with the same reason, the same lie. And by the 12th month, that number became 58. 58 people, none returned, none left a trace, not a single body recovered. All labeled accidents, all vanishing the moment their RFID signals cut out at the exact same location, Dock 4. In a narrow, icy office in Miami, fluorescent lights shone down on a data board that made analyst Marissa Calderon pause. An impossible pattern was emerging before her eyes. The statistical probability of 58 consecutive disappearances in the same island cluster, all without bodies, all without camera footage, all closed in record time, was 1.4 millionths of a percent. This was not coincidence. And then the containers started speaking. Over 3 consecutive months, Azure Meridian shipped a total of 8 containers to the mainland port, all declared empty. But when customs ran thermal scans, the steel exteriors were always 7 to 9 degrees warmer than the ambient temperature, a classic sign in container human trafficking cases. Too perfect, too dangerous to ignore. Calderon pulled more financial records. The resort belonged to Blue Meridian Holdings, a multi-billion-dollar luxury travel conglomerate. Its CEO, Victor Hale, was a familiar face in ocean conservation campaigns, a philanthropist, a green icon. But over 18 months, 3 shell companies in Belize, the British Virgin Islands, and Panama transferred a total of $2.3 million to accounts linked to Hale, listed as maritime service fees. No cruise line needs that kind of money. No resort pays such absurd fees to companies with no offices, no employees, no real operations. The missing persons reports kept piling up, and in Miami, Agent Calderon gripped her pen tighter. All the data, all the traces, all the patterns pointed to one terrifying conclusion. The paradise wasn't a place tourists came to relax. It was where they disappeared. At 5:26 a.m. on June 19, 2025, federal agents closed in on Azure Meridian from 3 directions like an invisible net tightening around the island. No sirens, no flashing lights, just rapid, precise special teams moving in absolute silence. The silence of an operation meticulously prepared to rip away the glossy facade the island used to hide what was rotting underneath. The first target was Victor Hale's villa. When agents breached the door and entered, Hale was standing in front of a bank of servers, fingers frantically entering commands to wipe data. He showed no panic, only the cold composure of a man who knew every escape route was sealed. Hale was arrested on the spot for conspiracy, human trafficking, and operating an illegal maritime transport ring. But the villa wasn't where the truth they sought was hidden. What they needed lay beneath the dock. A concealed steel door was discovered right at Dock 4, the exact spot where every victim's RFID signal vanished. When the door was cut open, an underground chamber was revealed, vast, deep, and completely at odds with what the world saw on the resort's surface. Inside were 12 20-foot containers, all with their real registration numbers erased, only handwritten markings in white paint remaining. In one corner of the chamber, 27 suitcases and backpacks belonging to tourists were neatly stacked, each still bearing its name tag. Not discarded, not disturbed, treated like inventory. When the first container was forced open, agents immediately called for medical teams. Inside were 14 people, all exhausted from heat and dehydration. On the container wall, a note read, 14 remaining units, departure 5:30 a.m. They had arrived just 28 minutes early. In container 9F, there were no people, only a carved message. If anyone finds this, please tell my parents I didn't run away. A brief message, but enough to shatter every excuse about voluntary departures. While the island raid team rescued victims and secured the chamber, 3 simultaneous strikes were launched. In Miami, a warehouse linked to Blue Meridian was searched, where agents found more containers showing signs of similar use. In Belize, the logistics office of a shell company was seized, containing transport schedules and container lists with codes matching those found under the dock. Offshore on the vessel Sun Meridian, the Coast Guard confirmed 3 containers had been modified into holding cells before shipment. Each raided site was a piece of the puzzle, all fit together perfectly, too perfectly to be random. They showed Azure Meridian wasn't just where disappearances happened. It was the hub of the entire transport chain, the collection point, the sorting point, the holding point, and the packaging point for people before they were sent out on international maritime routes. As reports from the simultaneous strikes poured into the temporary command center, the operation commander's conclusion rang out clearly, leaving no room for doubt or excuses. This isn't a resort, this is a human transit station. And Azure Meridian was just one of many transit points they leased or controlled. The money trail also told the truth. People wanted to hide. Over 18 months, $42 million flowed through Blue Meridian Holdings' financial system, with $1.8 million transferred monthly to accounts linked to CEO Victor Hale, under the label Maritime Procurement Fee, a meaningless expense in the travel industry. No legitimate maritime fee is paid through ghost companies in the Caribbean. No fee routes through 3 countries to reach a CEO, unless that fee wasn't for goods, but for far darker services. And then physical evidence from the containers reinforced everything the data said. Of the 12 containers under the dock, 8 had fresh welds on ventilation grills. Grills added to maintain temperature and oxygen for what was inside. Many serial numbers were ground off and re-stamped by hand. Some still smelled of burnt plastic from the erasure. Inside several containers, screw marks showed where interior cameras had once been mounted on the walls, later removed. No cameras remained, but the screw holes did. Evidence of discreet monitoring to ensure the cargo didn't die before arrival. Every trace, every weld, every obscured number was a piece of a system that could no longer be denied. Azure Meridian wasn't the beginning. It wasn't the end either. It was just the polished storefront promising luxury relaxation. Behind that paint was an international market, a complete assembly line where people were sorted, priced, packaged, and shipped. And the 58 missing, they were just the tip of the iceberg. A small part of the global supply chain North Star Exchange was orchestrating. As the full picture emerged from the data, the FBI and ICE moved to the critical phase: 31 days of continuous surveillance, a sleepless loop around Azure Meridian. Thermal drones flew fixed routes, scanning the entire dock area and the dark waters where transfer boats often lingered. Infrared cameras were installed at blind spots along the coast, areas the resort claimed needed no monitoring because they were absolutely safe. Listening devices were placed outside the dock control room, where Hale and his technical team managed the RFID system and internal cameras. Every movement by Hale was tracked. When he left the control room, his route to the pier, commands to disable cameras, employee file checks, and even seemingly innocuous encrypted calls that couldn't fool signal analysis software. Over those 31 days, the data stream yielded 4 key events. On April 11 at 2:13 a.m., an unidentified speedboat entered the dock area without passing identification checkpoints. AIS off. No RFID activation. It appeared for 2 minutes and vanished. On April 17 at 11:58 p.m., Container 12A left the island on an unscheduled transfer, despite the resort reporting no transport activity during that window. On April 23 at 3:41 a.m., all cameras at Dock 4 were disabled for 19 minutes, too long for a technical glitch, but just long enough to move a group of people into the underground chamber. And on April 29 at 4:12 a.m., Container 9F registered a sudden heat spike of over 11 degrees, as if multiple human bodies had been locked inside. None of these events stood alone, but together, they formed a timeline too clear to deny. Azure Meridian wasn't merely involved in human trafficking, it was the operational hub. And then, insider intelligence arrived, pushing everything into a no-delay phase. An island maintenance worker, voice trembling but clear, left a message through an anonymous channel: "Tomorrow they're moving 14 people. If you miss this chance, they'll be gone forever." That information matched perfectly with the note: 14 remaining units found after the raid. It was the final proof. A narrow window open for only hours. Miss it, and all the victims would vanish into North Star Exchange's maritime transport system, leaving no trace. When federal forces launched the simultaneous raid, the network behind Azure Meridian was instantly exposed. In Miami, a warehouse linked to Blue Meridian was searched, where 73 containers were sealed. 5 showed abnormal recent heat signatures, indicating people had been held inside. In Belize, the shell company's logistics office was raided, where servers held transport schedules with over 200 encrypted shipment entries using codes matching the dock containers. Offshore on the Azure Meridian, the Coast Guard found 3 containers converted into holding cells, with soundproofing, temporary ventilation and doors locked from the outside by mechanical electronic systems. This network wasn't small-scale. It was a global supply chain. By now, Victor Hale's crimes stood stark and undeniable. He sold live human slots for $28,000 depending on market demand. He exploited the island's private status outside direct U.S. jurisdiction to erase traces. He turned tourists into supply by using the resort as a collection point, then sorted victims by profile, age, and health before handing them to the international ring. No one suspected a luxury resort could be a gateway to human trafficking, and that's why the system lasted so long. The final revelations after the investigation left the entire agent team silent for minutes. The list of 58 victims was compiled into a timeline: arrival date, disappearance date, RFID cutoff time, ship departure, transfer route, and the vague destination the containers were headed to. Of them, 14 were rescued during the raid. 7 bodies were found in old abandoned containers off a Honduran port. The remaining 37, no one knows where they are, who they were sold to, or if they're still alive. Every missing person case on that list was an exclamation mark shaking the entire investigation. No more accidents. No more voluntary disappearances. All were products of a cold assembly line, a system that priced human lives with soulless numbers. And Azure Meridian was just one link in that chain. The case didn't just uncover the truth. It opened a gate to hell no one thought could exist beneath the veneer of a tourist paradise. When the final report was released, when the containers were sealed, when Azure Meridian Resort was completely shut down, the Department of Homeland Security appeared before the media with a statement so chilling it silenced the entire room. They commodified vacations. They turned paradise into a live cargo export hub. No one objected. No one defended. The images from the raid were too clear, too brutal. The resort, once praised as the perfect escape, had become living proof of a horrifying truth. Luxury can hide anything, even hell. Victims' families appeared before the press, none crying aloud. Their pain went beyond tears. One father stood amid dozens of microphones, holding a photo of his 21-year-old daughter who vanished during her stay at Azure Meridian. He spoke slowly, each word heavy as stone. "I sent my daughter to the safest place, and they made it her final trip." Behind him, mothers, siblings, and relatives stood like statues. They didn't need to speak. Every face was an indictment. But the case's aftermath didn't stop at this island. It exposed a far more terrifying truth. Azure Meridian wasn't an exception. It was just the first to be uncovered. 9 other private islands are under investigation. 6 resort owners are listed as persons of interest. 3 secret maritime routes have been identified with similar activity patterns. 2 global travel conglomerates are suspected of aiding through logistics and legal cover. The case didn't end when handcuffs clicked on Victor Hale's wrists. It only opened a new chapter, one about the dark spots the luxury world wants to keep hidden. And then the ethical question at the heart of it all rises again, sharp as a blade's edge. If the most beautiful, most luxurious, safest places can become landing pads for human trafficking, how many more are waiting for us to walk in and never walk out? The question isn't for the FBI, not for ICE, it's for all of us. Those who believe beauty equals safety, that money buys protection, that paradise can't be a trap. But the truth has proven otherwise. The truth has shown that traffickers no longer operate only in darkness. They operate under sunlight, on white sand, under the guise of relaxation. And they endure because of indifference, because of oversight gaps, because of blind faith in luxury symbols. Therefore, the final call in the report isn't an announcement, it's a warning and a promise. We will not stay silent. We will not look away. We will not let them bury the truth at the bottom of the ocean. This isn't just a reminder. It's a commitment that paradise will no longer be a cover for crime. We expose it, we face it, and we ensure no one else disappears behind those picture-perfect beaches. If you want to follow the next investigations and untold truths, please subscribe so you don't miss out. Thank you for watching to the end. See you in the next journey, uncovering the darkness.